boy who delivered a letter to George Washington. Written in one continuous flow, without chapter headings, as requested. The wind screamed through the Pennsylvania woods like a warning, bitter cold biting at 12-year-old Samuel Reed's cheeks as he pressed his hands closer to the weak fire his mother had built in their cabin. The Revolutionary War had reached their doorstep, and the silence around their home wasn't peace, it was suspense. His father, a patriot courier who rode between outposts delivering secret letters, had not returned in weeks. Samuel could see the worry etched across his mother's face, no matter how strong she tried to appear. But something had changed the night before. While gathering kindling in the barn, Samuel had overheard two men talking, strangers in rough coats and tricorn hats. One of them had a limp, the other wore a worn leather belt marked with a Continental Army insignia. Their voices were urgent, low, yet sharp enough to stab through the cold air. If this letter doesn't reach General Washington, the entire plan for Yorktown could collapse. Samuel's heart pounded. He'd heard stories of George Washington, the general who defied the British, the man whose strategies turned farmers into soldiers. But this wasn't a story, this was real. We can't wait for Morris. He was captured last week, the limping man said. Then who the hell do we send? That's when Samuel stepped forward. He didn't hesitate. Send me, he said, his voice firm but cracking with youth. The two men looked at him with a mixture of surprise and doubt. You, the older one asked. Samuel nodded. I know these woods. My father taught me every hidden path from here to Brandywine Creek. I can avoid redcoats. Please, let me help. For a moment the men said nothing. Then the limping one knelt and looked Samuel in the eye. This letter contains details about French troop movements, rebel supply lines, and General Washington's plan to corner Cornwallis. If it falls into British hands, the revolution could end in chains. Samuel didn't flinch. I'll deliver it. I swear. At dawn, with a sealed envelope tucked into a pouch tied beneath his shirt, Samuel mounted a gray horse named Storm and rode into the mist. The roads were treacherous, crusted with ice and patrolled by loyalists who'd turn him in for a coin. He kept off the main paths, weaving through deer trails and crossing half-frozen streams. On the second day, he spotted smoke in the distance and hid in the hollows of a fallen log as a group of British soldiers passed, their red coats flashing through the trees like bloodstains on snow. He didn't breathe until they disappeared. That night, he made a small fire in an abandoned hunter's shack and warmed his hands, whispering a silent prayer for strength. On the fourth morning, he met an old man near a creek, pulling a cart of bruised apples. Lost boy? What? The man asked, eyes sharp under gray brows. Just passing, Samuel replied cautiously. Cold day for riding? Want an apple? Free for travelers, the man said. Samuel hesitated, then took one. It was sweet, almost too sweet. 10 minutes later, the world blurred. He awoke in a barn, tied to a post. The pouch was gone. Panic gripped him harder than any rope. The old man returned, no longer kind. He wore a British sash now. Thought you'd sneak a letter to Washington. A clever, but not clever enough. Samuel's mind raced. He feigned weakness, waited until the man dozed by a lantern, then inched toward an exposed nail on the barn wall. The rope frayed. His hands bled. But he didn't stop. After what felt like hours, he was free. Grabbed a pitchfork, knocked the lantern into hay, and escaped as flames burst upward. The man howled. Outside, Storm was still tied, and beneath the tree, the pouch miraculously was untouched. With shaking hands, he secured it under his coat and rode off into the dark. Every mile was heavier than the last. His stomach ached with hunger, his vision blurred from lack of sleep, yet he pushed forward, driven by the memory of his father and the words he once said. Sometimes bravery isn't about fighting, it's about delivering hope. As dawn broke on the sixth day, he saw smoke not from an enemy camp, but from chimneys lined neatly in rows. A soldier at the edge of the camp aimed his musket until Samuel shouted, "Courier for General Washington." Urgent, the soldier approached cautiously. Samuel slumped and, barely conscious, pulled the sealed letter from beneath his coat. It must reach him, he said, then collapsed. Hours passed before he awoke in a warm tent, wrapped in furs, a bowl of broth beside him. A tall man entered, the same man Samuel had only seen in paintings and heard about in firelit tales. George Washington himself. "You're the boy who delivered the letter?" Washington asked. Samuel nodded weakly. "Yes, sir." The general's eyes softened. "You may have changed the course of this war." Samuel tried to speak, but Washington raised a hand. "Rest, son. You've done your part." And for the first time in days, Samuel Reed slept without fear, knowing he had carried the weight of a revolution in a single letter and delivered it with the heart of a soldier.